The Syrian war is sending millions of refugees into Europe, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt and Iraq. And as well, it is also creating many instability in Syria and many internally displaced people. This is an atrocity. How can the United Nations let this happen? We simply cannot. What we have to do, my fellow delegates, is re-establish order in Syria. Make sure that the legal government controls all of it, and then prepare, that we should prepare to send all the refugees back to their homeland. My fellow delegates, Syria urges all of you to vote in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Is the delegate of the information?
As many as Instagram followers that our president has.
Are there any in the House? Please your contact The points will be coming from Brunei, Greece, Turkey, and Malaysia.
Aware of the accusation that he castrated some people?
We are absolutely aware of such accusations, and we are also aware that they are absolute bogus. These accusations are lies infiltrated by the United States in order to undo the great work of the Syrian state. Delegates, I want you to flash back to 2004. Remember when the United States stated...
Please
please remind the delegates to please not use personal pronouns.
Delegate has to and Vietnam is not supposed to correct the chair of that.
The delegate of Syria would like to remind everyone that in 2004, a coalition of nations stated that Iraq posed weapons of mass destruction, such as biological and chemical weapons. Syria can freely tell you that those were lies and that Iraq had no weapons of mass destruction.
So, in class number 2 subclass 3, it states that once 3 years have passed, refugee interest will not be provided. So, is it then again aware that the civil war in Syria might last for more than 2 years? If so, would the delegates close all borders or block the entrance of refugees when the civil war is still going on?
Delegates, we believe that the war in 3 years will come to its closing. Syria is currently making great gains against its enemies, thanks to Russian air support and Iranian troops. We have retaken the holy city of Palmyra, such a beautiful monument built by Roman people. Syria is making great gains in its fight, and we believe that in 3 years we will be ready to call for peace and to ask for the refugees to come back.
Long live Al-Assad.
Long live.
The chairs would like to remind that delegates may not interrupt other delegates from making a speech, since when in any point except for personal privilege. Thank you.
Is the delegate of Syria aware that if Bashar al-Assad, president elected democratically by the citizens of Syria, may change his ideology over the last years by his oppression during the civil revolts that the Syrian people wanted to conduct? So my question is, if the Syrian president was elected by the people, don't the people have the right to be listened by the governor that they chose?
Absolutely, delegate. We believe that the people have every right they need. But however, most of the refugees that have fled Syria do not hate Bashar al-Assad. They have fled the fighting, the war, and the pain. And once they return to Syria, Bashar al-Assad will only take action against those that have committed any type of wrongdoing. Bashar al-Assad is a very merciful person, as you may know.
Is the delegate of the chair aware that the debate is transitioning towards the Syrian conflict and moving apart from the resolution?
The chair is very aware of that. very aware of that, and he was just gonna mention that. Thank you. Turkey. Somebody. Malaysia.
How can you say that Al-Assad's government is democratic when he's just the successor of his father, Hafez al-Assad, who ruled Syria for 30 years after that?
Malaysia, please restrain please. Pronounce you.
Syria is very aware that the nation is democratic. As many of you may know, fellow delegates, in 2014, 2 years ago, there were democratic elections in Syria, supervised by 30 international nations, and those 30 nations all said that those were free, fair, and transparent. Bashar al-Assad is democratically elected because he won by 88% of the vote. And no, some people may say that, oh, Bashar al-Assad is the only candidate in these elections. Well, that's absolutely false, because there were 3 candidates in these elections, and they all had a fair and equal chance.
Does the delegate for questions here or several?
Would it be in order to yield the floor to the delegation of the People's Republic of China?
Does the People's Republic of China agree? Then that would be another. The delegate of the floor to the People's Republic of China.
Fellow delegates, honorable students,
Please come to order, please.
the delegate of China believes that the resolution made by China, Syria, Hungary, and Russia is a perfect resolution to tackle the current refugee crisis in Europe. If this resolution passes, the rate of rape will be lower, the citizens of Syria will be free of terrorism, no foreign diseases or illegal immigrants will enter Europe, and finally, each country surrounding Syria and nearby European countries will not be forced or pressured to take any refugees who are fleeing from Syria. For instance, in clause number 3, it states that there will be medical exams on the refugees escaping from Syria, and this will help prevent any diseases entering Europe, thus causing an outbreak of a virus. This is why, fellow delegates, the delegate of China is encouraging all delegates to vote in favor of this resolution and finally stop the refugee crisis in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the delegate of information.
The delegate of this
The delegate of China had the results to 1.3 information. Are there in the House? The point will be coming from the ground.
The delegate of the House would like to know why in clause number 4, clause B, the delegate suggests that the maximum age of Italian economic assistance is 14 years old.
The delegate would like to respond stating that if the refugees were over the age of 14, it means that less children will be able to flee Syria, so less children might be saved.
Thank you. Does the delegate represent the chair or another delegate? Thank you. Before we move on to next debate, we will be entertaining one speaker against this resolution. Are there any
Point of information. Is the chair aware that the point of information presented by Vietnam was directed towards another clause which was not being mentioned at the point and which talked about citizens of Europe, not about refugees, therefore the point was
Vietnam has been aware, thank you, Hungary. Okay, before we move on to this debate, we will be entertaining one speaker against this resolution. Are there any in the House? Raise your clappers. USA is
Okay. So, as the delegate of Hungary mentioned, we have to move away from discussing the Syrian conflict. And unfortunately, in this resolution, all we're doing is discussing the Syrian conflict. Clause 1, we're talking about liberating the Syrian people, talking about military action. In clause 4, we're talking about maternity in Europe. What does this have to do with refugees? Well, the US doesn't see the connection. And really this just doesn't solve any of the problems that we're facing at the moment. If we're going to take a quick history lesson as to the Syrian conflict at the moment, well, it all started in the Arab Spring, where the Syrian people rose up against their government. They wanted to speak out against them, and instead they were killed by police forces. So really, when Syria is talking about democracy and how the people chose al-Assad, well, we disagree. So really, this resolution is pretty invalid. It does not address human rights, and it's not solving any problems on the earth.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate of the USA the delegate has to himself to support points of information? Are there any in the House? The points will be coming from Saudi Arabia, followed by Germany, Syria, and Hungary.
Doesn't the delegate of the USA believe that the resolution is effective in following the
Yeah, it is not effective of
Very strange. It does provide more resolutions such as regulation. For the maternity question, the delegate of Hungary would like to suggest the delegate of the United States reads the framework in which the delegate talks about how an aging population and they need to stop an aging population is used as an excuse to accept more refugees. The resolution tries to deny that fact, and immigration and mass immigration is not needed to end with an aging population. And for the delegate's question on why the Syrian conflict is being debated is because in order to ease the refugee crisis, it is needed, first of all, to stabilize. So is that a question?
Yeah,
Is the delegate aware?
No, the chair has to stop. Sorry. The chair would like to remind Hungary that every point of information has to be made through a question, and Hungary hasn't done that. So I'm going Hungary, please. Sit. Thank you. Does the delegate of the U.S. will represent the chair or
And really,
thank you. We will now be moving on to mixed debate, in favor and against, and the chair would like to remind all of the countries to participate, especially the future. Thank you. So are there any countries who speak in favor or against? Raise your placard. Oh, and amendments are able to be sent. But they might not be interesting. You may proceed.
So the Russian Federation completely supports this resolution. At the beginning of the debate, as stated by my colleagues China, Hungary and Syria, the measures are necessary for the problem to be solved. The resolution isn't at all radical and supports the will living of the refugees. Due to this, Russia invites all of the present members to vote in favor of this wonderful resolution. And in response to the United States and also more or less also answered by my colleague of Hungary, many countries in the European Union think that letting the refugees into their countries will make their parental percentages rise, and we think that that won't be the solution to this problem.
Thank you. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any of them.
Are there any in the House? The delegate of Germany, the delegate of Russia will be presenting the points submitted by the US.
delegate,
and Greece.
the delegate mentions that intake of refugees might increase paternity and maternity, and so more children will be born. And this is actually a problem in Europe right now because there's countries that have more population dying than is being born. So what does the delegate do this?
The delegate thinks that it all depends on the country, and well, obviously, if refugees enter, the population would also rise.
Did you agree?
Well, the Greece thinks that countries in Europe don't really need to help the refugees because of some information, but because many people are dying and they are trying to escape from this big civil war in Syria and are just trying to adapt to modern Europe, and so countries such as Greece would like to help these refugees so they don't suffer from this terrible condition. So what does the delegate of Russia think about this?
The delegate of Russia believes that if there are countries in the European Union that feel like helping, they can. That's stated in clause 6, I think. Yes. So in clause 6, we state that if there is any European country that does feel like helping the refugees, they will be able to help them. However, we do feel that, with our colleagues from Hungary, China, and Syria, we do think that the amount of refugees that are being permitted into the European countries is too high.
Thank you.
Yes.
Another speaker in favor or against the resolution? Are there any in the house? Right, say your voice.
Will the chair please make the media aware of what kind of amendments will be allowed?
They have, as said previously by the chair, the amendments have been allowed since we have started debating on this debate. However, they might not be entertained. It depends on how many speakers we have. There are many universities.
So the delegate of Germany wants to tell the whole world that this resolution is nonsense. So no point of the resolution, no clause is valid because the whole resolution goes against the human rights and human dignity, which will be stolen from the refugees if this resolution passes. So I'd like to explain what a refugee is. Well, the delegate would like to explain what a refugee is, which is a person who is outside their country because they have fear for persecution, race, religion, or political ideologies. So no refugee wants to go back to their country. So what would they be obliged to do so? It's a question that Germany doesn't understand. So the delegate of Germany also thinks it's ironical that the main submitter's country wants to build walls as borders in Europe, just like the Berlin Wall, to create borders and to avoid the influx of Muslims or Muslim race to go into Europe. So the delegate thinks it's not moral for a country to do this. And the country of Germany urges everybody to vote against this resolution.
Thank you. So the delegate of information. The delegate has referred herself to 3 points of information. Are there any that have members of members? Vietnam, Austria, and China.
The delegates of Germany now think that borders are completely necessary since the issue is getting completely out of hand and people should not be and could not be coming in and out of countries as and when they wish.
borders should be legal, but Berlin walls shouldn't.
The delegate of Vietnam hasn't requested a right to reply, therefore that would not work. Right, to your point, delegate.
It's in order for the delegate to prepare a wall that separated the country and that prevented people from seeing their families and bringing families to a simple border that secures a nation.
Well, the Berlin Wall was located in Germany, so the delegate of Germany does have the right to do so.
Doesn't the delegate agree that this resolution is completely radical and would definitely encourage refugees, further personality?
The delegate totally agrees with the delegate of Bashir, since this resolution is nonsense and goes against the refugees, which are overall citizens of Syria.
Delegates would like to commend the delegates of Germany on the resolution, but we have one question. And the delegate
From
has one. The delegate parliamentary procedure.
The delegates cannot interfere with another delegate's speech or point of information. The delegate here has to wait until the delegate of China has finished and then he can do so.
My pardon. The delegate has stated how this delegation would be human rights abuse when this resolution tries to give aid to the refugees and medical care. And furthermore, the delegation of China believes that it is really necessary to state the definition of refugees, which most of the delegates are aware. And we would like to make aware to the delegate that most of the people are fleeing from Syria due to the civil war, not to us as government. Doesn't the delegate agree?
So the delegate wants to express that by seeing the resolution, the delegate itself thought that the people who wrote the resolution didn't know what a refugee was. So that's why the delegate explained it. And personally, Germany believes that anyhow, anyway, this resolution shouldn't be voted, so that's why the delegate came here to make this speech.
The delegate still hasn't answered the question of the delegate of China about how this resolution is against the human rights. The delegate please specify how it is so.
Certainly, well, a country can't expect its population to stay in its own country when those people are trying to go away because there's a civil war and they're against the government policies and the government's way of acting. So that should be a right. And without that right, that would mean that there are no human rights in this resolution.
Please make aware the media aware about the fact that this resolution is not in any way trying to stop refugees from fleeing to their nations, but rather just implementing some regulations and some kind of organization to prevent terrorists and unwanted people from coming in. Definitely not putting Berlin walls or whatever to avoid refugees from coming in.
The committee has been aware. Is the delegate of Germany
Yes.
Then does the delegate deal with Thank you. We're still in this debate for this resolution. Are there any speakers wishing to speak in favor or against this resolution?
Motion to move to voting procedure.
Objection.
Objection.
Raise your records now. Yes, now.
Between increasing maternity in Europe and regulating immigration.
Yeah, definitely. So, since there is being such conflict, a lot of people are dying, and a lot of refugees that are trying to get to Europe are dying, and the population is decreasing. This is why they are encouraging maternity and further growth of population.
Granted.
So, we believe that, well, the United States believes that in the resolution, they're making reference to maternity within Europe. So, what does it have to do with death?
Could the delegate please repeat or rephrase the question?
Okay, so we believe that in the resolution, the clause is referring to fraternity within Europe, because that was an excuse for basically having immigrants. So how does this relate to the debt that you mentioned within Europe?
Unfortunately, since we are not the main submitters of this resolution, we cannot answer that question. However, we definitely urge you to send a note to Hungary as they're the main submitters, and we are sure they have a good answer for that.
Thank you for your wonderful comment. However, also wonders why does the delegate agree that people have the right to leave and come into countries when in the society that we live in today, everyone is free to learn and learn?
Well, delegate. Of course, people are allowed to do whatever they want, but they aren't allowed to do whatever they want if this is going to be damaging the rest of us. Like, if the rest of all of our countries, if people are just coming and going with no rules, like, how is that okay? That's definitely not okay. It's not okay with many of our countries, and yeah, like.
Thank you for your amazing and superb speech. Doesn't it agree that in the society in which we live today, in which being progressive and a good citizen of the world is being overposed to maintaining the security and the safety of our citizens, and that it is more today it is more necessary than ever to implement regulations and organizational measures.
Completely, we completely agree, and that's why we thank you so much for creating this resolution.
Nothing is not in order.
Can you subject any point of information?
Objection. Point of procedure. Wait, raise it again. But due to objections, that will not be granted.
Is we consider a personal pronoun?
It is, and the delegate has been corrected. However, she is speakers. That's the delegate of Vietnam. You look for to share. We will now entertain the amendments submitted from Taiwan. So please, Taiwan, go to the podium and read your amendments.
As many delegates have mentioned before,
No. Delegate, please read the amendment and then
the amendment is to strike out clause 4.
thank you.
So as many delegates have mentioned before, the clause has nothing to do with matters that is being discussed. Immigration is not the solution to any problems of the country that is receiving the immigrants. What does an aging population have to do with the refugees? An aging population is a problem that only a few countries face, and it isn't a big problem enough to be debated.
Thank you. Is the delegate open to input information?
Anyhow.
The delegate has proposed themselves two points of information. Are there any in the House? Radio matters now. Taiwan will be reading the point of information coming from Malaysia.
The delegate wants to remember all the delegations that the protected right of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to assembly. We are frightened of being badly treated in our own country. We all have the right to run away to another country to be safe.
This clause is saying that it's talking about an aging population. We're not saying that immigrants should not be allowed to go into the country. So I don't think that the delegates believe that this point of information has anything to do with it.
Thank you. Are there any other points of information in the House?
Doesn't the delegate of Vietnam believe that immigration and refugees that will take care of any country have to do with the increase of population in the countries that will be
If that is the case, an aging population As the delegate of Vietnam mentioned, wouldn't more of an Asian population lead to possibly more newborns to create a higher amount of young population?
Thank you. That's a very easy
Motion to move the voting procedure.
Sierra, do not interrupt the chair. Well, since there has been an objection, we will not entertain the points coming from Syria. Are there any other delegations? Are there any other delegations to speak in favor or against this amendment? Mr. Byer. I'm ready to be
As it seems as if the whole committee has to understand.
May the House please come to order, please.
As the delegate of Hungary has seen that most of the committee does not understand Clause 4, the delegate of Hungary will make an effort to explain it and to make sense of it. The fact is that many nations all around Europe are starting to accept refugees, immense amount of refugees, because their population is aging and they are scared that they'll soon not have young people in the country. Well, the fact is that this resolution proposes a solution to this idea, an end to this idea that by accepting refugees will end the aging of the population. This resolution wants to make clear that countries of all Europe shouldn't be using immigration to end the aging of the population, and that by installing social benefits for parents and financial aid to promote maternity is a much more effective solution to an aging population than rather accepting migration.
Thank you. Delegate of 2 points of information.
Hang on.
The delegate of 2 points of information. Are there any in the House? Mr. Barker? Germany and Syria.
Wouldn't the delegate agree that if the clause could be misunderstood, it should be striked out?
Probably. For that reason, we encourage all the delegates, including the delegate of Germany, to send amendments to rewrite it.
Doesn't the delegate agree that the message proposed by the resolution in trying to avoid aging population by increasing maternity rates and subsidizing babies, doesn't the delegate agree that these measures are simply enough and perfect and there's no need for an amendment?
Absolutely. We believe that by ensuring that this amendment does not pass, we will ease the influx of refugees as they will not be as needed, and we agree with Susan.
Thank you. Are there things you want to do that you here?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers wishing to make a speech in favor or against this amendment?
Motion to pass the voting.
Second!
Are there any objections?
Yes.
Are there any speakers wishing to make a speech in favor or against the amendment? You will say you will recognize.
Delegates, we feel this amendment is a step towards the right direction. However, we feel it falls a bit short. We can see that the amendment strikes out one clause, while it should strike out all 6 clauses, because this resolution can simply not pass. There's not one clause in this resolution with which the United States agrees with, and with which all democratic states of the member nations should agree with. So we encourage all member nations to vote in favor of this amendment and against the resolution. Thank you.
This is the legal information. The delegate has submitted himself to 2 points of information. Are there any in the House? The chair strongly encourage other countries who haven't spoken yet to raise their placards. Germany and Hungary, if you could recommend.
Doesn't the delegate agree that this position has so many clauses that are against the Syrian refugees humanitarian rights that it should be completely
Absolutely, Delegate. In fact, we're discussing a resolution that has to do with human rights. And we feel that some of these clauses even violate those human rights, as some of the delegates have so already pointed out. So yes, we wholeheartedly agree. Thanks.
Could the delegate please explain how regulation in order to provide security to our citizens, medical care, and trying to stabilize Syria to avoid the influx of refugees violates human rights?
Absolutely. We can see that this clause has got nothing to do with human rights, and that's the first point. And we also feel that the delegates in favor of this resolution are pointing out that natality is a problem. So how many children are born? And while it is true that some of these people coming in and will be accepted will rise that natality and will rise that problem of the non-growing population, we simply feel that this resolution cannot pass because we feel that it doesn't cover all the points that it should in order to prove effective in solving the refugee crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the delegate refer back to the chair?
Motion to extend regular meeting.
Objection.